Hey everyone, it's Tammy with Next Level Me. Welcome to another segment of our Spotlight interview series. Today, we're going to take a different slant on the journeys we've been talking about, and rather than talking about career in reinvention, we're going to talk about career growth. So, how do you grow in the same industry, leveraging the roles that you've had in the past? I'm here today with Cheryl Kananowicz, who is EVP and CRO for Content Critical Solutions, and she's spent the last 35 years in the same industry. She's been with four very different firms, and while she's helped those firms grow over the years, she's also grown and reinvented herself as well. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
So, 35 years, that's quite the journey. If you were to look at your career as a journey, would you say were the key objectives or the key drivers that actually guided you from role to role over that time?
Yeah, 35 years, it's hard to even say that these days. Looking back, I describe the journey primarily transformative, both professionally and personally. My early years at my first company, which I was with for 25 years, every role that I was in was a brand new role, which was kind of exciting. It meant that we were growing and it allowed me to define the role and ensure that the task for the role ultimately met the goals and objectives that the manager or leader had set out for me. And the motivator was always to succeed and achieve what they were looking for. And most of the companies that I worked for, each of the roles were brand new. And that just continued to create opportunity. And um, I personally wanted to succeed not just for myself, but I enjoyed being part of a team and part of their success as well, whether I was leading it or driving it or experiencing it with them.
That's great. Were there any key roles or any key opportunities or mentors maybe that really helped to position you as you made those successes along the way and you moved from role to role?
There are many, far too many to list, but there are a couple that stood out, and they actually the two that stand out the most were female mentors, and um, they don't stand out just because they're female. They stood out because they just were really good role models, and they continued to work with me, throughout my most of my career, and really guiding sort of where am I going next, and also providing insight in regards to the current teams that I had, and just really good rational sounding boards in regards to understanding employee challenges, understanding organizational challenges, and how to beat them. Um, One of the most valuable ones in my later careers with my first company was the head of HR, and she just was really no BS, just very rational. And when you're an organization that's in acquisition mode, constantly reorganizing and restructuring, it stretches you as a leader and personal decisions, or just your, personal character, to make really hard decisions around people. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions around people on your team, even if they're some of the best performers you've had, but really about what's best for the company. And she was just tremendous in really breaking things down and looking at them objectively to make those hard decisions. Um, but candidly, probably some of the best mentors I had were some of the salespeople and sales support people that I worked with. Always focused on our clients, and they taught me about not only the industries we were serving, but also how to identify, buying signals from clients, from corporations, how to navigate them, not only our clients, but also prospects. And the skills that I built during those years with folks in those roles really built the foundation that I've had for my entire, for the entire sales and sales support operations function that I've drawn upon for many years across several companies.
Yeah, I just read a post on LinkedIn about real heroes don't do it all themselves. They have great teams around them that they rely on, right? And I think that is critical, having the people around you that you can lean on, that you can trust, that you can
Mhm.
support. So you touched on one challenge, and that's when you have to let people go. I've had to endure that in my career many times as well. Were there other challenges, or even for that one? What did you rely on, or what did you use as kind of your mechanisms for overcoming those challenges and kind of not letting them get you down and still helping you to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, hey, for me, I've always felt lucky the path that my career took, right? I moved up the ladder pretty quick, but I would say that for me personally, I always felt that I had to work really hard to prove myself, and that was a challenge, right? I always felt like I needed to prove why I deserved that position or why I earned that position, and so that was my own personal challenge. And maybe also, a result of climbing the ladder quickly is sort of you continue to take on new challenges and responsibilities each year. So every year it's something new and uncomfortable. And, and you see this, you read about this a lot, the quote unquote imposter syndrome, right? But it applied to me in every way, no matter what level of support I had, whether they were mentors above, my peers, subordinates, and I'm lucky to say that I had a lot of support across all different levels, both professionally and personally. But to your point earlier, I always look to hire people that have deeper experience than I did and could fill the gaps for my weaknesses, right? We have to make sure that we've got people that come from all different disciplines and all different skill sets to really build the best solution or best approach or strategy for the company or for our clients. So, but I'd say those early couple of decades when things were moving really quickly and lots of challenges were probably the most stressful at the time. And as I look back, however, we had incredible success during those years, as hard as it actually was. So,
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know I've known you for many years, and I know you've had tremendous success no matter where I've known you and what company it was. So bravo to you for that. Um, it is hard though, and you mentioned it, and this is something that we talk to people about all the time in terms of imposter syndrome. So was there something in you personally that you drew on when you were faced with looking at a new role that gave you the courage and the confidence to say yes and actually step into that role?
when I was at my first company, we were growing so quickly, opportunities presented themselves for larger responsibility every 18 to 24 months, but it wasn't always the opportunity to say yes or no. It was usually the opportunity to where this is happening. And one of that company, they merged with another company and doubled in size. And I was asked to, create a sales support team locally to mimic something in one of the other operations, which I did. And that was really exciting because I was able to move out of the day-to-day operations that I had been at the time. And about a year or so later, our EVP of sales had told me they were going to let go of my direct boss and his boss, and they wanted me to take on a VP role and manage everything that they had managed across multiple locations. And I was insecure enough as it was to take on three locations, but never mind the fact of how I was going to get there, right? The couple of people that I had worked with for a year or two, and just learning the business and learning what they had done. That organizational change and restructure process was foreign to me at the time. I didn't sleep for weeks waiting until that actually happened. And it wasn't really a yes or no option, right? I mean, sometimes, but it was the best thing for me, right? You've got to feel stretched in order to grow. And are we ever really ready for the next job? And why wouldn't you take advantage of it? But I think that story is an important one because, I've been fortunate enough to have that story repeat itself in a similar way multiple times throughout my career, at least three other occasions and in three companies. And so, I often think it's because I was in the right place at the right time. And each time it was a challenge and I was scared to death, but I was fortunate again that I had, some really strong mentors and colleagues around me to be able to do that. So,
Yeah, it's always fun to be in those like voluntold positions. Or as I like to say, you've done such a great job, your reward is more work. But that I just saw a book. Price Pritchett is just promoting a book that he's had out there for a long time called Lucky You, and it says speaks to exactly that. Sometimes it's just being in the right place at the right time and having luck that helps position you. I mean, obviously, if you don't have the talent to capitalize on that, you're not going to be able to succeed. But sometimes it is positioning yourself in a company so that you are visible, recognized, and able to be thought of when those opportunities come up.
Yeah, agreed. And look, if I put my insecurities aside and as we get more mature and more accomplished within our careers, you get more confident. And so if I look objectively about what I've been able to do over the last 3 decades, I'm pretty excited. I've been able to develop and lead really effective teams across many disciplines, not just sales and sales support. And I've led, teams to acquire some of the largest contracts in the history of companies that I've worked for. And that's pretty exciting. I've turned around difficult client relationships, difficult teams, and I've never walked away from a challenge that was put in front of me. But it was always very uncomfortable for me to list my accomplishments, and it still is, candidly. It frustrates me that it still is. But if I was coaching my younger self, I would be coaching my younger self as to how to better self promote not only my accomplishments, but my team's accomplishments and what they mean to the company. And, I just always thought that good work would get recognized. And I was fortunate enough that it did, but it doesn't always work that way. And so I think as a leader, that's one area that I, personally continue to try and work on and also make sure that I focus on when I'm working with others from a mentoring and development perspective.
That's very honorable. I wish every leader out there did that. Uh, so you have accomplished a tremendous amount. I mean, some of it you shared with us today. How did you manage, or do you still manage, to keep balance and perspective both for yourself and other aspects of your life as you have gone through your journey?
It's not easy, right? And one of my former bosses, he was a CEO, and he said to me one day, he said, we're going to have good years and we're going to have bad years, professionally and personally. And, you just have to hope they have more good than bad, and you just have to keep working through it. And, I'm not going to lie, some years were much more difficult to keep balance at home because of the projects and initiatives that needed to be taken care of. And then other years were more manageable. But for me, it's about having a routine, and I have been fairly consistent of taking care of myself, of making sure that, I'm exercising. If I don't exercise, I am miserable. And I just think it really impacts your whole psyche as a person, whether you're just walking or you're riding the bike. And so I am an early bird, and I'm pretty consistent about that and have been over the years. It may change in different forms, but so that was always critical, to at least start the day, to be mentally there. And then, your world changes again, just personally when you have children and you have a career and you're trying to balance it all and you're traveling every week. There were some very hectic and crazy weeks, but you have to prioritize and make sure you're home for the important ones. And my son is now out of college, and so he doesn't seem to remember all those little events that I may have missed when he was young. And it's more about, making sure you're present, mentally present, not just physically present with them. And I think that's the most important thing. So, but now that I really am in my last chapter as I think about what do the next 5 to 10 years look like, right? I feel like I'm much more effective at managing that work-life balance, being able to prioritize and really focus on the things that are important both at home and at work. And I don't know that anybody really has a secret sauce, quite honestly, Tammy. If they do, I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, we are trying to help people find at least some level of holistic approach. But guys, I tell people all the time, there is no silver bullet. There's a lot of silver BBs, but there is no silver bullet. So, well, I think that it sounds like you've got at least a good approach for you, Cheryl, which is all we can do is find the approach that works best for us, right? So I think that's a great way for us to close out. I thank you so much for being with me today. It has been a pleasure, as always, talking with you. And for those of you watching, if you are in the same industry and you're thinking, how do I continue to grow and how do I continue to move myself forward? I hope Cheryl's story has been inspiration to you. because just hang in there, keep striving, keep working hard to get to your next level me. And if you need some help along the way, let us know. See you on the bold path.